Can you develop people to be as good or better than you? That multiplies your efforts. What does it look like to delegate appropriately, to train people in a way that I know that they'll be doing it the same way? If I'm not there, like, do I have a step-by-step of what this looks like? And so little by little, started thinking about those things and training people and really getting excited about developing the systems. Stop keeping it in here. That's my number one thing when I work with business owners. They're like, everything that's here, the goal is within a year, can you get it all on paper or sooner, right?
Strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle in your family business. This is Fearless Family Business. Welcome to the Fearless Family Business Show. I'm Adam Hill, and in today's episode, I interviewed Cathy Christen, the founder of Elevated You, Inc., co-founder of GoBundance Women, and best-selling author of Life as a Masterpiece. And in this episode, she shares how she thought she had achieved everything that she wanted when she was in her 20s, but she felt completely unfulfilled. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, because how many of us in family business chase achievement thinking that it will give us meaning, only to find ourselves burned out, disconnected, and wondering, what is all of this for? Cathy's story is a masterclass in building life and business with intention and not losing yourself in the process. So if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right, but still not feeling right, this one's for you. And hey, if this resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe for more fearless conversations about family, business, and legacy. Enjoy the show. Cathy Christen, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have you here.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Stoked to be here. Absolutely love the focus of your podcast. So excited to be able to contribute.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to jump in, because you do have a ton of experience, working with leaders, inspiring women, and working in communities, and working with your husband, and like starting your own family business. And I understand you have a 9-month-old in the other room, so we'll try and be as quiet as possible. But yeah, I do want to jump in to part of your story, which was really, inspiring to me. And I think that may resonate with a lot of families and family businesses out there, which is, you self-proclaim you kind of had it all in 2007, right? You had it going, everything going for you, but you felt unfulfilled and tired and burned out. Can you kind of share, maybe start there? I want to start with that experience and see what was the catalyst or the inflection point that led to transformation for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I got to a place where I had, achieved everything that I thought I wanted to, right? In my early 20s. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm earning multiple 6 figures. I've got, we've broken every record in like our sector of things. And there were a lot of positive things, but I was lonely and I missed my family. I had alienated the people that were the closest and most important to me, just because I had become a workaholic, just chasing after, whether it was money, milestones, we were all the things, right? And it was really a time where I looked and went, oh my gosh, like I was very unhealthy. I was my body, like everything, I was just exhausted. And I'm like, why am I so tired? Like I'm 25 years old.
Right.
And I was just so tired. I was unhealthy, physically, mentally, emotionally. I was just sad. I'm like, how am I so unfulfilled when I've just, achieved these things I thought were going to be incredible? And I remember taking some time for myself that year to really think about, like, what did I want in life? Because I thought I just achieved everything and I was going to be super happy, but I'm not, and that was the first time that I sat down to go, what do I want? I think most of my life prior to that, Adam, it was more about what I didn't want. And I was running away. Like, I don't want to be, struggle like my family did. I don't want this to happen. I don't want to have these type of arguments. I don't want to see this. And, I grew up in a lower income household, and so there were a lot of like poverty mindset things and that I didn't want. But I don't know that, I thought about it a little bit in my early sales years. I think I was first exposed to goal setting as I was working with Cutco, selling Cutco back in college. And,
oh, yeah.
And that was the first time that I really started thinking about that. But I think at this point it was like, okay, it wasn't just like, what do I want? But it was this deeper, like, what do I want my life to be about, right? My cousin had just passed away in 2006. Actually, that was a huge catalyst.
Oh, yeah.
And so my cousin had passed away. He was my best friend. We were the same age. I was 2 months older.
Wow.
And it was an unexpected, tragic thing. And And that really got me going like, wow, like, what am I doing? Like, if I'm gone tomorrow, as he was from one day to the other, am I happy with what I've done? Am I happy with what my life looks like, what my relationships look like, how I'm serving, how I'm impacting? And the answer at that point was no. Like, no, I'm not. Like, my family doesn't like me right now. I haven't been around, and I think that in '06, I definitely went into some type of like a mini depression of like missing him. And I just focused on work to like ignore everything else, then got addicted to some of the successes and kept that going. But then I hit a wall, August of 2007. And I was like, I can't continue doing this. Like, this is not living. I'm ignoring pain that I had not really processed. And I hadn't sat down to think about like, what do I want my life to look like? And so that was the first time I really started looking at more life by design versus just setting goals, right? So I think that early 20s was like goal setting and learning that. And then mid 20s now, I was like, okay, what do I really want my life to look like? Let's look at all the areas, like internally, externally, like what does the flow look like? What do we want to have? And that really shifted and created a new excitement within me. To go back out and do a lot of the same things I was doing, but from a totally different space, with different focuses, different desires, and showing up with a different energy to things. And it was really utilizing my business and my platform to grow people and to see people tap into their maximum potential and to see people blossom. And it wasn't just about earning this much money or beating this person or, I think in early years in sales, I was competitive as heck. So I love kicking everybody's butt, especially all the guys, because I was the only female at the top. So, I had a lot more depth once things happened, started thinking about things and the different layers of things that really mattered.
Yeah. So we come from a bit of the same cohort. I remember in college, I did the Cutco presentation too. I did not succeed to the level you did by any stretch, but you seem to have a lot of success with it. And it kind of, obviously helped you to build that early success, naturally kind of got you to a point where maybe you were working a little too hard, had that realization but how did that early success within Cutco and kind of, I know cutting your teeth and door-to-door sales kind of stuff, how did that really shape the leadership that you would build later on?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the discipline, the self-discipline, that you have to have, the resilience, learning to deal with rejection, right? And I didn't physically go door to door, but we were doing in-home appointments, very much like a realtor, but it was the phones, right? We were calling leads that, might have known we were calling, or many didn't. So they're like, who are you? So you're almost cold calling, getting hung up on or not interested. And so learning how to build rapport, how to connect with people quickly, how to have them feel, heard, understood, and have a desire to want to meet you. And a lot of these skill sets, later on, really helped our business grow at high levels, and I think that there was a thicker skin that I grew early on because in the beginning it was like, what? Like they said no, or they didn't want to do it. And then it became this like, well, stinks for you. You don't get to meet me, and there was this different level of confidence and a lot didn't bother me, I'm like, someone had to be like really nasty or mean and be like, you're this or you're that, which no, I had one. I remember in 2003 that I wanted to like punch him.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I was like, why did you even say yes to an appointment? Right? Like, it wasn't like I came unannounced. Like they set up an appointment with me.
Wow.
And they were super nasty. I was like, what? But most people are so sweet. And so it's really neat. I think with Cutco, what I love is like you have this platform where you're learning like these like intense real life sales skills, but you have this amazing like cushion and support and encouragement, from your office. You have a great product. I mean, my grandma has had her Cutco since 1957. She still uses it and she's in her 90s, right?
Oh, wow.
To have a product people can use every day, have forever, never, so like Cutco sold Cutco. So it was really like me learning how to sell myself, how to build rapport, how to network, how to get leads and referrals. And these are skill sets that every company needs,
Sure.
And it's so neat now to be able to help so many people in all different types of business. I've helped hundreds in, I would say at least, I was looking the other day because someone asked me how many different sectors. I was like, I think 37 different sectors of businesses, whether they were doctors or lawyers or real estate or, whatever they were doing. Start and open and scale, businesses. And these are all things that a lot of people don't learn. They might have a great passion, a great idea. They want to have a business, but they're like, I don't know how to sell, And so having those sales foundations, you're going to use those forever,
Absolutely.
So that was a huge thing that made me feel pretty unstoppable as I got older.
Yeah. How do we imprint that? Because that's such a powerful and difficult skill to learn with sales and being rejected. And I know a lot of us struggle with that. I know I have in the past. Hence my failure in the Cutco arena. But how can we develop that in the younger generation? There's a lot of listeners to the show are family businesses. They're selling their products, or maybe they're a legacy company like Cutco, which has been around forever. Mm-hmm. How do we teach our kids the skills to be resilient in that space of sales?
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more, one is they've got to do hard things. Like, I think that it's important for us as parents, as business owners, and when we're looking at the future generations, unfortunately, I believe that the generations are getting a little bit softer and softer, right? Because they don't have to have as much grit, because things do come with more ease. Technology has done so many amazing things. I mean, shoot, you don't even have to have sales callers now. You can have AI sales callers that do it all, right? Like, there's so much technology, which is great. But I think that there's still an art to that belly to belly, and getting to meet people and the power that comes with that. And those who have those skill sets will set themselves apart in years to come, utilizing AI to take care of a lot of certain systems, but still the top 20% or those huge accounts being able to have the skills to confidently meet with people and talk to them. And what we're seeing, Adam, and so I work with universities. I was actually just at the Professional Excellence Selling Association. I had something this past week with one of the universities, and it's actually the #1 sales program at University of Houston in the country.
Oh, wow.
And now there are so many more. Over the last 5 years, we've seen so many schools open sales programs and sales majors. And actually, UH will be the first ever master's program for sales that'll be launching this next year.
Wow.
Because people are seeing, like, this is something that everybody needs and every company is going to need. And that's not going to get real. Yes, like bottom line and lower level sale and things will get, but like a lot of your high ticket sales, that's relationship, that's connecting, that's really being able to problem solve. And although AI will streamline so much, like, the people that have those skills are going to be very highly desired by all the companies. So for me, I tell people, I'm like, do hard things, like let your kids go out. Like Cutco, I will scream it from the rooftops. It is the best place for a young person to like develop, but there are different programs. There are sales competitions out there. There's DECA, which is in the high schools. And that is an incredible club that if your kids and you're listening, if it's offered in your city, the DECA program, and they teach them and they have to learn to sell and to pitch an item, and they do it in front of people. They have sales competitions. I think that people need to, for me, when I first started sales, it was thinking about like a car salesman, right? Like the pushy salesperson, and you don't want to, and that's not what sales are. Sales is a transfer of enthusiasm from one person to another. And it's whether like, oh my gosh, you have to check this restaurant, Adam, it is just unbelievable. Or, oh, you got to, and you're excited about something, or there's a solution you could have for something, right? Like you have an idea or a solution or a service, or you're selling yourself, or maybe you're selling a product, but we're always selling. The world we live in is transactional. And so if we can get the stigma away from sales and understand, like, as I sell a great product or service, I'm actually helping people improve their life in this way or that way or whatever it is, and understand that that's what you're doing. You get to help them in this way. And if they end up deciding that your service or your product is what's going to help them out, like how many families have you helped, right? How many people have you helped with their companies, and you're selling a service, right? So I think that there is still stigma, but more and more we're seeing the next generations understanding, oh, wow, like this is a place where if I'm good at it, every company in order to scale needs to retain current clients and need to also attract and gain new clientele. And how can we combine with AI human superpowers and getting this confidence in these skill sets to take it to the next level with our company?
Yeah, I love that with the perspective on AI, because I'm a huge fan of AI in terms of the way it can help supplement humans as well. But I agree with you. I think that nothing's really going to replace that, as you call it, the belly to belly interactions, the human connection, and we can always and one of those driving mantras is that systemizing the predictable so that we can humanize the exceptional. we've got to keep
Wow.
focusing on the human aspect and use the tools that can help us to systemize what we can already predict. And it sounds like that's where you're going with things. And so you've shared kind of that that transformation that you made, when you realized that you were overwhelmed, working too hard, alienating yourself from family, that something needed to shift, right? And then that got you from one part of who you were to another part of you. So who did you become beyond that? And what role did the systems that you created play into that? And, the
I mean,
community?
I think that systems and the communication were two of the biggest things, right? And I know, I know you're a lover of EOS, which we were doing before it was a thing, right? For years,
Right.
like this was such a core part of our process. Because when you look at businesses thriving, I think that as I shifted, it was like, well, one, I can't scale alone. And I think to that point, I was just hustle, hustle, hustle. Let me work more. Let me work harder. And there was a big shift right after I hit that wall of if I want to triple my business, there's no way in hell I can work 3 times as more. Like it was physically not possible to do that. So how do I do this? What does this look like? And prior to that, it was this, young, very immature. I can do it better than everyone. I'm going to do it better, and maybe there are things in your business right now, if you're listening, that you can do better. Great. Well, you know what? Sometimes good enough is good enough. All right. But we can be intentional to find people that can help replicate us, that we can train and that we can work with. And I was challenged by one of my best friends and mentors, Justin Donald, I talk about all the time, lifestyle investor. And, he had such an impact in my life. He was my first business coach or mentor, like 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember Justin telling me, he's like, Kat, you become the best in our company's history, in what you do and in your role. I was the quickest promoted into Hall of Fame, da, da, da. And he goes, keep it up. You're going to burn yourself to the ground. Right? I always talk about this, but that was a light bulb moment. And at first I was like, what? Like you can't tell me that, like, I'll be just fine. Like the pride, the ego, again, the immature, right, young business person came up. But then I really thought about it. And he goes, if you want to be, if you want to keep scaling and growing, you need to shift your mindset from just, or keep that mindset if you're the best at everything, but take ownership and being the best teacher of everything. Can you develop people to be as good or better than you? Right? Like that is a great thing to take ownership on. Like I am the best at teaching others to be better than me, right? Because then that multiplies your efforts. And so that was a big shift for me when I hit that wall was, okay, what does this look like? What does it look like to delegate appropriately, right? To train people in a way that I know that they'll be doing it the same way. And that's where it was SOPs, right? And figuring out, okay, how do I like things done? Like Cathy's SOPs, Cathy's processes, like what do I do that's different maybe than other people? What do I want? If I'm not there, like, do I have a step-by-step of what this looks like when I engage with someone or when I meet with, when I have a new sales rep or when I'm coaching them or when they need support here? And so little by little started thinking about those things and training people and really getting excited about developing the systems, the processes, the documents that I had not put together because everything was here, right? Stop keeping it in here. That's my number one thing when I work with business owners. They're like, oh, well, I know. And I'm like, no. I'm like, everything that's here, the goal is within a year, can you get it all on paper or sooner, right?
Oh, yes.
It's not an overnight process if you've been running a business for a decade and never documented things, because you don't remember everything that you do all the time, you don't have. And so like, as you keep doing things, like, are you recording yourself? Now with AI, it's unbelievable because there's so much that can be documented on the fly, right? And done. And before I used to just record myself and then have someone watch videos and create documents. That's how we did it pre-AI.
Right.
And it was getting those processes, and it was really learning the training process for people that I don't think people spend enough time in being able to truly multiply themselves. And then it was the follow-up, right? The meetings. We had team meetings every single week. That's something I prided myself on. In 2008, every week with, going around recognition, what's hot, what was their celebration from last week, keeping things, looking at the metrics that we had, the goals we had for the week and where we hit, looking at goals for that, what are areas of improvement, doing that together. Even though I could tell them all the answers, it was like, hey, what do you guys think could help this number go up? Or what do you think could improve this or that? And they're like, oh, we should do this, we should do that. As an early manager, I'm the one telling them everything because I know everything.
Right.
As a seasoned and more mature manager and understanding, like, I want them to take ownership on this. And the more say they have on these ideas, that I could have told them to do the same thing, but they're like, we should do this. And I'm like, that is a great idea, Adam. I'm like, can you take lead on that? They're like, yeah, and they're all of a sudden they show up more excited, more enthused to carry out these deliverables, right? Because it was their idea, even though you could have told them the same thing and you can help guide the conversations. But I started learning, and we created a powerhouse organization. Like from there, we were number one in a $250 million company, 9 years out of the next 14. And it was because the systems, the communication, right, with the team. And also we had to learn conflict resolution because there were people butting heads and there were issues. And I think you had an episode, I was like, oh man, I would have loved to talk on this. I think it was like episode 11 or something, but like, I love talking about like, how do we make difficult conversations simple, right? Yes. And when there are tiffs amongst workers, especially family members, we can't hold stuff in, right? Because what happens when we hold it in? It freaking snowballs. And then later it's this avalanche where like it could have just been a small snowball and we could have smashed it and all would have been great, right? But we let it, build up inside of us. And then this explosion comes later that many times was completely unnecessary, but there was a resentment or a frustration that was just brewing, right? And so that's something that I remember early on talking to, hey, if you have an issue with somebody or something's happening, like, let's address it. And it's not you did this or you did that, and teaching them and saying, hey, when you did this or when this happened, here's how I felt. When this conversation or when you walked right by, I felt ignored, and I don't know that you meant to do that, but this is how I felt in that moment. And I was trying to show you something for whatever meeting. And the other person might go, I just had news that my grandpa passed, where I just had something happen. And they're like, I'm so sorry. I was just out of it. And I was just walking straight. I didn't even see you there. It's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Versus as human beings, we take so much personal. We're like, oh my gosh, they ignored me. They did that. So there was so much emotional intelligence training, for our people. And it was like learning. And I remember sitting down in 2008, we had this whole like sit down, everybody, like we were going to go around and we did this exercise called stop, start, continue. I think I don't know where I had heard it from at that time, but I was like, we're doing this and we're going to go around the horn, including me. And you're going to tell me, what do you feel I should start doing, stop doing, and continue doing. And yes. I've seen prettier and softer and nicer versions of it now, but it was very direct. But we have to set a container for that too. And it was like, we're doing this because we want to see each other thrive, because we want to grow as an organization, and because we want to have cohesion at the workplace. We want to be excited to come to work, because my business has always been like a family. Whether they were actual family or not, it felt like family. Right. And everyone was treated that way. And so there was, a lot of training around, we did love languages test. I had them take love language tests. I remember in 2012, my staff was like going at it. And then all of a sudden they turned against me. Cathy doesn't care about us. And I was like, what? I'm like, everything I do is for you guys. And when and they said, you just care about this person. You're good with this person, but you ignore us. Well, when we took the test, we see everyone took it and we went around and shared our scores. And the one person they said I always spend more time with, they were an acts of service. They were like me. And acts of service and gifts. Everybody else was quality time. Quality time is my lowest of the 5 languages. It is the lowest one on my list. The only time you're going to get quality time is if you take me to dinner, because I love nice food, right? Or we're traveling together. And it's like all the staff that craves quality time, especially quality conversations. And when I'm in work mode, I was like, boom, let's go. Let's get shit done.
Yeah, right.
And this other person was like that too. So it was like so easy to, have conversations. And when we'd finish work, I say, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Guess what we were doing at dinner? We weren't having how was your, and we're like, all right, what are we going to do? Let's do this. And we were just planning and, scheming all these cool things on how we were going to grow the business. And we were working because he loved to work too. Where for them, if we were at dinner working, they'd be like, you just always work? We can't just hang out, right? And like, I don't know that I knew how to do that at the time, but it was an eye opener because they were like, oh, right. And they saw this, and it's like, it's not that. Here's how I show love. And when I do this for you guys, or when I'm working really hard to ensure that our office is hitting these type of sales levels so that you guys earn more money, so that you guys win the free trip, so that you guys have all these awesome opportunities and cool experiences. And that just like clicked. So it was, utilizing personality and then figuring out the personality test thing. Oh my gosh. In between 2008 and 2012, that was another thing. We had the great people, right person in the wrong seat. And that was disastrous for them and for us. They were unhappy as hell, right? Like their natural glow was so dim because they were hating what they were doing because they were not wired for that task. And so then learning, that and going, okay, let's figure out like what our strengths are, how we're wired, how we learn, because and I know you know this, but shoot, when you're training people as an early trainer, everyone is trained the same way. And even to this day, as I do trainings, it's done the same way. And I also incorporate different, whether it's role play or different hands-on thing, like just different aspects of the training, having them teach each other, because people learn in different styles, and then there's people that need every single detail before they take action. And I'm like, hey, take this so you can study this and have more detail. Where the other ones, you'll bore them to death. They're like, tell me what to do, point the direction, let's go. Right. So, anyway, I can keep going. But that was, those were all things like the emotional intelligence, the really up-leveling communication and understanding, difficult conversations made simple, conflict resolutions, and being able to have the comfort and the permission to like approach someone early. Hey, I wanted to chat, like I didn't feel good in an interaction earlier. And like, I don't want this to keep going because like, I care about you and I want us to be able to work really well together. And I think that again, with family, that's even more important. These were not people that were related, but they were a work family, and they cared a lot about each other. And I think that when it's actual family, even more so, to me, family is everything. And making sure that people are feeling heard, people are feeling supported, people are feeling valued. Right. And I think that, we integrated a lot of these things, and I love EOS and what they can. I'm like, well, we've been doing this. We just didn't have a name for it. Right. But it's a perfect framework to do so many of these things, to have objectives, everyone be clear on objectives, on roles, deadlines. And so there's no guessing, or I thought this, or I thought you said this. It's like, no, it's all right here. Right. Right. Your turn, Adam.
If you're a family business owner or operator and you're looking to get more control over your business, I would love to talk with you. I want to give you a special invite to request a free 90-minute workshop with me to learn the powerful tools of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Just shoot me an email at adam.hill@eosworldwide.com. Again, that email is adam.hill@eosworldwide.com. I'll put that in the show notes as well, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Well, I love that because you were talking about, you basically covered all of the 6 key components of EOS in what you're talking about in building those systems, and talking about the process component of how important it is to document everything, and the data, what you're measuring, how you're tackling issues, and making sure you're going into the dark forest and covering those issues, and of course, getting right people, right seats. So sounds like you tackled all of those issues in your organization to make it healthier, and really kind of just identifying that in those systems, and that. And am I correct in assuming that through that process, you freed up a lot of your time and space to be more effective in your zone of genius?
Oh, in 2008, I started traveling about 6 months out of the year. I wish I would have done a lot more investing, but I was enjoying my life. I definitely had a disconnect with wealth building for the future because of my cousin passing away unexpectedly. And then in 2013, my sister passed away unexpectedly, and I had started saving them. And I was like, I'm just going to live my life, but I had a lot of free time. And it was amazing because it wasn't just I was freeing up time. I was also developing incredible leaders because they were empowered and they had systems and processes, and they had, coaching and support from me on a weekly basis, monthly, quarterly, annual planning. And it was amazing. And I learned how to be a true business owner and not just a full-time operator.
Yeah. Well, I do want to touch on that training too, that leadership development that you're talking about, because, you've had a focus, as I understand it, on really helping women to develop, coming from your background where you said you were you were one of the only women, if not the only woman in your space, and you just crushed
I'm
the
currently
competition.
one of two women in my role in North America.
Oh, really?
Today. And yeah.
So, so navigating that space, how are you training women to navigate in that space? Because I know that is an issue in a lot of industries, family business in particular too, still very much heavy male dominated. And how are you training women to become better leaders? And what lessons can we teach our younger women, or those of us who have daughters, in terms of how we can help them to grow and become more of who they truly are and what they're passionate about, how they can grow into great leaders themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have been very blessed to be working with youth for over 22 years now. This May will be 23 years working with youth. And we've kept, my husband and I love, we met in Cutco years ago, and we've always, we keep this. This has been kind of our ministry for a long time, and I love being able to develop very strong leaders. And I know the impact and influence it had on me when I was 19. And I just love that we work with 17 to 22-year-olds, and we run this big program in the summer. And I actually have a leadership academy that I started teaching in probably 2010 that I started incorporating, because I realized there was a gap, that was really there around life skills, like just abundance mindset and the psychology of sales and the 4 agreements, something so basic as how you show up and what you think, right? Like goal achievement, power of association, emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, time management basics, financial fitness principles, budgeting. They didn't know how to budget, public speaking, and so we said, I want to start teaching our guys this just to help them be more equipped, and we started doing this years ago. And so I think that, again, with youth, I see too many parents, that keep their kids in a bubble, just protecting them, giving them, and that's great. And you also need to let them fly a little bit, and let them get their feelings hurt a little bit and let them grow. I'm sure you've heard Sarah Blakely, her dad was like, how did you get rejected today? Or how did you, I love, when I heard her speak about that, I'm like, hell yeah, that's amazing. And I want to incorporate that as my kids are growing up and learning to deal with rejection and knowing you tried something and it's not always going to work out, but what did you learn and how did you grow? And what are we going to do next time? Right. And so being able to do that. And so I love, being able to work with youth, but I think that my passion for women really didn't even set in, Adam, until my 30s. I think in my 20s, I felt like, oh yeah, I'm unstoppable and I'm rolling with all the guys, and,
right.
And as I started, reaching my mid 30s, I had a lot of 20-year-olds and coming to me for mentorship, for guidance, and then saying, who were your female mentors? And I was like, oh my gosh, and I realized there were real issues that I kind of had ignored or I just dealt with it that not everyone can deal with the same way. God made me pretty freaking strong and resilient. And I know that, and some of the things they were coming to me with, I was like, oh my gosh. And there were things that I had gone through, but then I had tucked so back in my head, I'd forgotten about, and so really started leaning in. I'm like, man, I need to get out there and meet more powerhouse women, because I don't know how they do it all. I don't know how they have children and have businesses, because I didn't have kids at the time. I started kids almost 40 is when I started kids. All right. So I'm an older mom. But I had no idea. And I started thinking, I'm like, man, where are women like me? And a lot of my friends were like, women like you, I don't know that they exist. You're always traveling, you're always doing this, you're starting businesses, you're helping people, you're just too busy. You need to stay home if someone's going to want to marry you and have a family.
Right.
And I remember that hitting me what? And I really saw, and I always was told indirectly or directly, you have to pick as a woman. And I was like, why? I'm like, why can't I have it all? How come my guy counterparts can have families and travel and all this? And I can't. That's bullshit. Sorry, I'm going to just call it out there. And I was like, no, what does it look like? And honestly, a lot of it. And as I work with women now, and that's where GoBundance, I was like, I'm going to start a group for women. And it wasn't GoBundance, by the way. I was going to start, my group was called Holistic Go-Getter, but I was going to start something because I was introduced to GoBundance by good friends, Hal Elrod and John Berghoff, and they're like, you've got to meet Mike McCarthy. And, we met at one of Hal's events, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And he was telling me about GoBundance. And I said, these are my people. Like, yes, 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 yes. Right. Like as he talked about the pillars, he's like, yeah, we're all about thriving relationships and epic adventure and contribution and passive, I'm like, oh my gosh, sign me up. And they're like, well, one caveat, it's men only.
It's men only.
And they said, but we're working on a women's thing. And I was like, oh, this is crap. And so like that next year, I was like, I'm just going to start my own thing. And I started working on that. And literally 2 weeks before my first retreat, I got a call from Mike McCarthy to talk about, hey, what would it look like for you to help us, launch a women's division? Mm-hmm. And I laughed with my husband because literally when the 2 weeks before, I had in my gut, 2 days before Mike called, I told my husband, I said, I don't know if I'm supposed to run this retreat next week. I think I'm supposed to wait. And he was like, really? Why? I said, I don't know. I just keep feeling like I'm supposed to wait. And then when Mike called me, he's like, that's why you were supposed to wait, right? Like,
it's good intuition.
Yeah. And so I think that now we get to, through GoBundance, and also like I've started a women's club, within our business, and I've opened it up to, different groups that we work with, because we have our consulting company, we have Cutco, we have GoBundance, we do stuff with our church, and then we have a small VA group over in the Philippines, that we started with just a handful. There's about 10 of them, and they help different people in our industry. So it's kind of more in-house. But I've told the women, I'm like, we're going to start having, because a lot of women don't have access or haven't had as much financial education. Shoot, women didn't even have bank accounts till the 70s,
right?
And so learning about imposter syndrome and learning about processes and systems, and a lot of the things that EOS teaches for business, a lot of that when you're a female owner, like you're integrating a lot of the same things into your personal life, like it's a lot of the same principles, and having a great team and having clear roles and who's doing what and how people are supporting. And it's really incredible, and I think that the more and more women get educated, and I think that women also have the like, oh, I'll just do it. They're going to help everybody. And it's to the point where they burn themselves to the ground, and learning to set boundaries. And it's like, I'm not going to do everything. Right. Let's write down everything that has to be done for the house to run and for life to work. And let's look at, what are things that only I can do? What are things that someone, as long as I show them what to do, can do it just like me? What are things that we can, offboard, or, I have college kids that help me with random stuff with the kids that they can do. But then I have a nanny that would stay here if I'm out of town, or, and so figuring out who can do what, so that we have our team and things are delegated. I'm not going to mow my lawn. I'm not going to do my laundry. There's certain things I'm just not. I want to spend that time. I would do that just like playing with my kids or doing other things. And so figuring out what that looks like for your life without having the guilt, because there is this insane mom guilt. And I don't know, it's put on like societal expectations that you have to do it all. And women who are listening, you don't have to do it all, but you can have it all. And you've got to learn what that looks like, right? And so I think that that's a big part of what we go through, is like, it's okay to have someone help you. It's okay to say, you know what, my plate's a little full right now, but I'm happy to give you some tips to help you with that, versus going, sure, I'll do it. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Stop doing that to yourselves. And women do that a lot more than men do. And so it's giving them permission to say no, giving them permission to take care of themselves and work from a, overflow, giving them permission to offboard things that they feel they're supposed to do, or family, because even my brother's like, you don't do that, or you can't take care of your own kids, or you can't take care of this. And it's like, no, I could. I just choose to spend my time doing these things and then having time to play with my kids. And I'm going to have someone help me with some of these other tasks that are time consuming, but someone else could do them so that I can spend more time with my kids, and I can run my business that I love, and I can travel when I want to, because that's what I want. And that's my life by design. And it's going to look different for everybody, but that's a big part of everything for me, since I don't think that I called it that, but I launched my book back in 2018 called Life as a Masterpiece. Mm-hmm. And I wrote it for my great-great-grandkids to like learn, like, how do you have it all? And how can you design and live a life that you love? And again, there's not one size fits all, but really getting clear on what you want and what's important to you, putting together the right systems and structure for your life and your world so that you can do those things. And then making sure you're taking care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, so that you can ride the wave of life, because it goes up and down and all around, right? So.
Well, I love it. Gives you, I mean, I think it also sets a good example for your kids too, when you're showing that you're taking care of yourself and you're living life to its fullest. And and so my wife has said, recently, and I think it's super wise. I love the way she puts it, that she wants to, end her life at her funeral. She doesn't want people to say she sacrificed so much for her family. Like, that's something we hear that's so noble. But she said that, and I'm like, yeah, that's powerful, because you want people to remember you as somebody who lived, the example of somebody who lived the life that they want, of passion, who showed people that life is worth living. And so I love that energy that you're bringing and to that, and to GoBundance, to other women, to your kids, and speaking of GoBundance, because you brought that to the front. When I joined GoBundance, one of the reasons I joined on the men's side, obviously. One of the reasons I joined was because being in a leadership role in a family business, you'd think it would be like bringing you closer to family, but it was the loneliest thing I could feel, being in the top position. And finding a community of people that understood where I was coming from and understood the challenges that I had in that role was just such a great experience. And you founded the women's side, with Kelly Resendez and Mandy McCarthy. Not Mandy McCarthy. I was thinking Michael McCarthy, but Mandy McAllister. How did you meet them, and just tell us a little bit about GoBundance Women and what you're doing in the world.
I think that when the men were looking to start the women's division, they reached out to some of the women that they felt could really help get this thing off the ground. And so Kelly and I actually met at a founders meeting in San Diego, December of 2018 is when we met. So we were part of the original founding team that was kind of launching things out. And so in 2019, we started recruiting and building up to our first event in March of 2020. And then COVID hit. We had to shift things and, built an online community that was really fun that year. Mandy actually joined fall of 2020, I believe it was. And we got to meet her in person at our first live event post-COVID, spring of 2021 in Texas, that still had, we were open. And so we got everyone to come down here, and it was amazing, and from the start, I just loved Mandy's energy and what she brought. And, as the years, and I had no plan on having, I knew maybe one day I'd have one kid at that point. And since COVID, I've had 3 children. In 2022, we decided, we had worked hard, and the guys had said, at some point there would be an opportunity for us to take over at full ownership by women for women. And Kelly, Mandy, and I decided to take that on. And so fall of 2022, we took over. And so it's been women owned now since then, which is awesome. And just getting a chance to work together with these incredible women. We all have different backgrounds and how we've grown and built our wealth, through business building, through sales, through mortgage industry and building companies. And we all have different strengths, that we bring to the table. And it's really neat to be able to connect with all different types of women. And it's been really beautiful to see what's grown, to have heart-centered, like-hearted, like-minded, like-driven, women who are focused on abundance. And it's hard to find, because a lot of women, unfortunately, I think that was conditioned before, as there were very few roles given to women in leadership in companies back in the 80s, 90s. It came like, if there's only one woman they're going to give, you have to step on the other women so you can get to the top, and I love, one day we were talking about women climbing the corporate ladder, and just how icky that could feel. And I remember Mandy saying everyone just needs to be able to own their own ladder. And I was like, yes,
I love that.
And so as we were talking about what we wanted, GoBundance to look like, to feel like, and that was a big thing of, we want the spirit of women supporting women, women understanding that even though we have been alone for a long time and have built on our own, we actually do move further, faster together. And when you bring 2 powerhouse women together, it's not like a 2x type thing. It is a multiplier factor in terms of the like exponential growth that happens for everybody. You're like, this connect, oh, you need to meet this person, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, like it's a 10x factor, not just times 2 or 3, however many people are involved. And I love that. And I love how freely the women are willing to share resources, help each other in growth, knowing like there's just so much more to go. There's so much to go around. And it's unique because you don't find that in a lot of women's groups. And I love that our group is about how do we grow each other, and you don't have the like cattiness and shit that sometimes can exist in women's groups.
Oh, yeah.
It's a totally different type of woman. And the number one thing, Adam, that I used to do a lot of the sales calls before the last 2 kids, and over, I would hear women say like, well, so it's only women? Like, I don't know about, like high-powered women. Like, I don't know about being around just only women. I'm like, oh, welcome to the tribe. I'm like, you found your people, I promise. I'm like, if you are dissatisfied for any reason, once you meet everyone, you let me know. I was like, we have no problem if you decide this is not for you. And every time they're like, oh my gosh, you're so right. I'm like, These are your people. So I'd say for, women out there who have been doing it for a long time on their own, to be able to be in a community of like type A driven, but also like full of love, support, conscious leaders who are growth oriented. Like this is the crew. So thank you for asking.
Absolutely. It's been fun to watch it grow from the outside. I mean, just like it's been blowing up recently, and just seeing how many, and even on this show, I've had quite a few of the women in GoBundance Women, come onto the show, and it's been so great to see how it's blossomed and thrived under your leadership. And yeah, so I'm curious too with regard to, so you did start, your family, you start growing your family recently within the past few years. And as you reflect back on your growth and your rise through from where you said lower income household to, becoming successful. And now as I can imagine, a very successful woman and family. How does that shape how you're going to educate your kids when they're growing up in a more, I guess, a more resource heavy household versus low income? Yeah.
I'm like, man, they don't have to deal with any of this stuff,
Right.
One of the things that I love about GoBundance is being able to have so many people to model, right? Like some people who've done it that I watch how they do things. I watch friends of mine, even people who are not, like Justin Donald, John Vroman, who runs Front Row Dads, and just seeing how they talk to their children, how they empower their children, how they really allow them to fly their wings early on. I think one of the biggest keys to empowering youth and raising amazing leaders is allowing them to grow up sooner. Back to the bubble of like, I have these 22-year-olds who have no license, or like, my parents won't let me do that. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And I moved out when I was 17. I've been on my own ever since, and that doesn't need to be the case, but I love watching people of GoBundance and sending their kids are 14 or 15 and they're traveling by themselves and they're going to a Tony Robbins event, or they're going to do some contribution and helping build a hospital, or helping build, I think they were doing wells or solar panels down in, Central South America, and saying, go do that. And so that people, these kids really see like, wow, like the blessings that we have and how can we give back? And I see so many of the teens, instead of being these spoiled brats, they're world-class citizens. And they're like, what problems can we solve, right? Because they're around all these entrepreneurial-minded people. What problems can we solve? How can we impact, right? How do we grow generational wealth and passive income? Not because we're greedy, but because we want more time freedom to create a larger impact. And so I love, and so for me, how do I raise my kids? Being around these GoBundance, like-minded families, right? Kids that think, my husband and I, we were at the Dailies. I don't know if you know Seth Daly. We're at the Daly's house for a big pool party. I think this was 2 summers ago, but this happens all the time. And we were over, and my son is like swimming and playing, but we hear, they're two of the young ladies from our group. And I think it was Mike McCarthy's daughter. And then there was one that was like 6 years old that she was speaking with. And they're just sitting by the pool and they're like, so did you do your miracle morning today? And she's like, well, I didn't get to meditate, but I did my affirmations. And I'm like, like I did not grow up with this,
Right.
So I think that them being exposed, like even in my house, like my kids, we do deep breathing, and we do breath work in the morning, and it's hilarious to watch my 2-year-old. He's like, I'm like, you're going to hyperventilate, buddy. I'm like, slower. And so we'll put on a video and do, breath work together. Or I was sharing this on a podcast 2 days ago because it literally just happened this week. But my son comes out of the shower and he wanted a hot shower. Mommy, can you put me a hot shower? My 5-year-old. And so he was just in there for a while, had like a bench in there, and he was just like sitting on it, letting the water run. And he comes out and he goes, I had such a great shower. I was like, yeah. I said, what were you doing in there? He's like, I was medicating. And I was like, you were medicating? He's like, yeah, I was just like, I was just breathing in and out. And, and I started laughing. I'm like, oh, meditating. He's like, yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, yep.
That's hilarious.
But it's the exposure, right? And that now it's not just mommy and daddy, but when they go hang out with other kids at GoBundance or at events or, just like-minded people in general, whether they're within GoBundance or out, but growth-oriented, like-minded, health-conscious, they get it. But they get to have these conversations that his buddy is telling him, like, you want to go on a deep plunge? You want to do a cold plunge with me? All you got to do is you just got to breathe. You just got to breathe through it. And this is like an 8-year-old educating my 5-year-old on what to do to go into a cold plunge, So I think that we all know when you surround yourself with like-minded people, and we talk about our kids, like, don't hang around this person, or our parents told us growing up, right? You're going to become like them. And back to Jim Rohn's, like you become the average of the people you hang out most with, right? The 5 people you hang out most with. And I think that a lot of people know that because I hear all parents who are not into self-development talk about, don't hang out with him. You're going to start doing that, right? Like we all understand the power of like osmosis and like what's around us. And so how can we be intentional, right? As parents, as leaders to go, okay, who can they hang around with? Who do I want rubbing off on my kids, right? And how do we spend more time with those people? And so that's a big focus for us. We spend a lot of time in Austin because the community that we have there and the friendships are so strong. And we love our children being around our friends' kids who are raising them the same way, right? And I love seeing them have the conversations around their meditation and like, let's go do this or let's do our affirmations, and it's just beautiful. So I'm super stoked to see, as they grow up, with those values, with these practices, with a desire to contribute, to give, to know how blessed they are, and to see how they can use their knowledge, their wisdom, their resources, their network to be able to create great impact in the world. That excites me.
That's so great. And all of that because, you've built this community around you of people who your kids and you can aspire to be like, and who can help lift each other up. Mm-hmm. So if people do want to get, I know that there's a lot of rock star women leaders out there right now running family businesses, working in family businesses who might want to get connected to GoBundance. How can they get in touch with?
Yes. I'm like, well, you can go to GoBundanceWomen.com. Also like on my website, you can go right to CathyChristen.com and you can even just schedule, a time to chat. I love meeting powerhouse women, who want to have it all or are doing it, and are excited about having a place to be poured into. I think that whatever level you're at, there's always, who's pouring into you, right? Like all the best leaders, and you're pouring out, who's pouring into you. And we're excited to keep growing our community with shakers and movers, and women that are making huge impacts in their worlds and their communities and, their societies and being able to really pour into one another.
That's so great. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing that message. And if you're listening out there and you want to be a part of this community, or you want mentorship or leadership or a cohort or coaching, reach out to Cathy Christen, CathyChristen.com. Is that the correct website? Yeah. And GoBundanceWomen.com if you're interested in GoBundance. Great community. I can't speak more highly of it. And Cathy, thank you so much for being here today. This was a real pleasure.
Oh, it was awesome to meet you. I'm excited to meet you in real life.
Yes. One of these events one day soon. Yes. I appreciate you very much. Awesome. And thank you all for listening. And And if you like this episode and you feel like somebody else can benefit from it, please share it with a friend. It helps us to get the word out about family business everywhere and improve the love, legacy, and lifestyle we want to bring to the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you next time.